So File, New document. You're going to print, and you want to go to your presets. This time we're just using the straightforward A3 size because we're going to add our bleed on. Better to measure in millimetres. You can see that's the correct measurement. We don't need facing pages because we're not doing a spread. And just make sure that primary text frame is off. Often that's automatically ticked, and that'll interfere with you placing things on the page. So you don't need that. Okay, that's really more useful if you're doing, a booklet or something like that. Margins, they're useful to stop you getting things close to the edge, so you can obviously change them, but a standard 12mm is fine, just will help you not put text too close to the edge of it. Your bleed is the important thing. To get it prepared professionally for print, you'll need 3mm. Hit the little key to make sure it's 3 all round. And that's pretty much it. What else do we need to do? That's pretty much it. And then just create it. That's what it should look like, and you just have to make sure, now that we're going to bring our image in, we've got to make sure it should, because we've made it bigger, it should go right to the edges. Now, as you start to bring things in, they should turn up in your links palette, so we're going to talk about that, but first let's put something in there. So File, Place, go and find your image, your Photoshop file. And then because it should be the right size, if we just drop it from the corner, we should see that it's going right out into the bleed area. If you want to see what it's actually going to look like when it's printed, you can go from this little tag here that says Normal to Preview, and that'll clip the edges of the bleed off in the same way it'll be trimmed, and that's your trimmed image. So you can see it's chopped a little bit of the thumb off there. Okay, but you can also see that the beauty is we haven't had to drag the image up. And when we drag it up, we start changing the actual pixel resolution of it. So make sure you've got your image in there and that it's sitting right to that edge of the bleed. If you did the measurements correctly, it will be. So you can see that tiny little sliver there where it's overlapping. That's going to get trimmed off. And we're going to go through making the PDF correctly so that our trim marks sit there, so that when it's trimmed there's a mark at the end of either of this for them to actually use to trim it. Go to your Window Links palette. So it's Window Links. And if you've placed your file correctly, rather than just randomly pasted it in, it'll appear here. So when you just cut and paste stuff into InDesign, we just won't have a link there. So try to place things, it's a better way to work, then you know you are actually creating a link. So you can bring in everything you need. So I'm going to place my text, my type that I made in Illustrator, open it. Oh, sorry, wrong document. Put it on the wrong one. Put it on the wrong one. Oh, I know what's happened. I still had the bounding box selected. Was it that one? Yeah. There we go. So what's happened is because I've still got see how the selection's still active? So it's replaced it. So click off it, so it's make sure it's deselected, and then go and place your next one. So don't do what I did and place it in the same box. So you can use either a PDF or just the straightforward Illustrator file, and it should open with a transparent background. I can bring in the file place, I can bring in a PDF version just to show you. Oh, so I've done the same thing. So either the native Illustrator file or a PDF. will come in quite well. Now one of the things, the reason you can see how my title text is there? And say I'm fiddling with it and I think, well actually I just need a little bit more black back on the image. I just need to extend that a little bit further. And notice the margin's useful. See how it's stopping me from going too close to the edge? So if you put stuff up there, it's going to look quite crowded to the edge. So a margin is a really good idea to have to use when you're designing. So let's say for both the image and the text, I decide I'm not really happy with it. I want to keep editing that image. I might maybe want to go and change the way that gradient is working and make it go a little further down. So to do that, all I need to do, because I've created a link, is just go to this little hamburger tag and go edit with, and we're going to go edit the Photoshop. Oh, hang on, I hope it was 25 it was in. And there I am. I'm back in the original Photoshop document. Anything I do now, say I do want to edit that gradient, or I want to do a different one, I just want to change the way it's working. I want to go further down the page. Or maybe I want to completely change that black colour on this layer. Instead of black, maybe I want to change that to something else. So I want to have a gradient to a nice blue-green or something. That's not a very nice blue-green. Maybe something like that. So I'm just going to dump that colour in. So I'm making quite a few changes on my image, checking them out to see if I like them better. Maybe I need to go darker on that colour. Maybe that. Okay, so I've just made a couple of changes, and yeah, I'm a bit happy with that. Maybe I want to change, some coloration in the image. So I'll do something a bit radical so you can actually see the change. Okay, so am I happy with that? Yeah, I'm kind of happy with that. It's completely different. All I've got to do to have an update in InDesign is hit Command S, save. Because it's linked, when I hop back to InDesign, you can see it's automatically updated. So this is why you want to keep a version of your file when you're first working on this thing. You just use the Photoshop file with all its layers, and you can just go backwards and forwards and edit. Now the text, okay, maybe I don't like that font. Because it's an Illustrator file I've linked, same thing. I can just go edit with Illustrator. Just got to get my version right. I think that's the right version. Now, at this point, I hadn't actually outlined that text, which you should do. It's still a font. While I'm designing, it's still a font, which means I can go in there and go, okay, I want to switch fonts. Maybe I think it's a little too thin and it doesn't have enough personality. So I'm going to pick something with a heap more personality. Okay, that's a bit hideous. Okay, maybe that's not what I want. But the thing is, I can go backwards and forwards. I haven't really committed to this. So maybe I go with that, but I think it needs a bit more personality. So if I want to edit it as an image, I've got to go type and go ahead and create outlines. Now it's no longer a font. Ungroup it, and now I can go in and I can really do a bit of designing with each letter. Maybe I just want to do something simple like have a bit of movement. Maybe it's something like that I want to do. Yeah.
Did you know there's a way to do that while still having live text?
No. You can tell me.
You can't edit the actual shape, but you can change the size, angle, and movement where it is on the...
Oh, you'll have to come out and do a little demo.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to do this for the moment, just to demonstrate using the links. So you're designing, you're doing your designing here. So I didn't get that edge. Okay, so I'm a bit happy with that. All I've got to do is save, go back to my InDesign file, and it's updated. And it's not going to keep looking for the font anymore because I outlined it. Okay, so I'll get August to come up and show us what you meant in a minute. I'll just finish this process because what we want to do is now, say we're happy with this design, we're going to put all our smaller text on. If we want a solid panel, like I was talking about before, you know, if you needed a solid panel, you know, for whatever reason to put text behind, you know, you can start adding those things, and then you can put your smaller, just use your text tool, and you can design your text in here. So, you know, it's actor 1, actor 2, dates, etc. Sorry, I've got the wrong tool there. What happened? Yeah, just want the ordinary type tool. So you can just finish off the whole thing. The dates, all of that information that we ask you for. Just get my size up a bit. Where's all my type stuff gone? There it is. So again, you can start, you know, designing with your fonts, doing something a bit more. Well, that's terrible. But you know, you can do a lot of work in here, and you know, get the colours you want and all the rest of it. So do your designing, and the smaller type you might find, you know, you do end up running it on a panel. Just think about contrast. So obviously that's a terrible contrast, so you need to think about your colours carefully. Get your window swatches up so you can play with your colours. Where are they? I don't know where they've gone.
Under colour.
Colour, oh yeah, that's right, they're hidden under colour, that's right, the swatches, thank you. So muck around with the whole, you know, poster, get things organised. Now at this point, go back and have a look at the structure that you tried to create on your sketch, and put some guidelines on. So Command R turns your rulers on and off. Do try to create some sort of a structure so that you've got guidelines. You can align various elements within it. So remember we talked about the Fibonacci thing. So if we are going to put a logo on, we could use that, for example, to line up where it's going to go, or the QR code. So it's a structure. And, you know, put as many rulers on as you need to help you organise stuff. Think about varying the heights of letters and the sizes, and varying your fonts, etc. So we don't have to stay at that size. You know, the date, for example, might be a lot bigger. You know, that might be your date. So, but, you know, rather than just kind of randomly floating it all over the place, put that structure that you thought about in your layout back on the page, if you can. All right, so see how you go with that. Now, when you think you're finished, and obviously the address and all those details can go down somewhere like this, because it doesn't need to be, you know, very big. I'm just going to put some placeholder text in there, smaller, make it white, show up. So, you know, your date, address and stuff like that might be quite small in comparison. So get it all organised. When you think you've got your design finished, you know, and I might be tweaking that for quite a while before I'm kind of happy with it. But yeah, get it all finished, and then you're going to package it. So I'll just put that on. Like that. So it's starting to look something like a poster. So let's put it in preview mode. You know, go in and out of preview mode to check how the design is working, because presumably you're going to put some guidelines on. It starts to look a little bit messy. So turn it on the preview mode so you can check how the actual design is going. Then when you think you're ready, we're going to actually make sure we're exporting it correctly. So we're going to make a proper print-ready PDF. So that's File, Export, pick PDF, Print, give it a name. I'm just going to call it Poster PDF. when you hit the save button, you're going to get this panel coming up, and what you need to do is make sure that you go to marks and bleeds, and make sure it says high quality print, by the way, that one. Marks and bleed, and we're turning on all printers marks. Sometimes you don't need all of them, but mostly if you're sending to commercial print, you need the registration marks, otherwise each colour plate wouldn't line up. As it goes through the press for each colour, this is CMYK process printing, how on earth are they going to line up the cyan, magenta, yellow and black? Okay, so in the output, we might have a look at this, and it's telling me what colour profile to include. That's actually quite important, and I would say either include whatever ones are coming through, so that would, or like that one, or just generically include all the profiles. If you say don't include, then it doesn't know what colours doesn't know how to manage your colours as it processes them into CMYK. Printers can send you a particular profile to work with, and then you're ready to export it. But I'm going to cancel here because I forgot to do something. Okay, so back here, I have a Photoshop file, and one of the reasons you have links in this panel is because you can look at them. See that Photoshop file? This one is in an RGB mode. See that? Not a problem. Let's just use the links palette. So at the very end of the whole process, I can go back and go edit with Photoshop. And I can just go image mode, CMYK. I don't even have to flatten the layers if I don't want to, but you know, if you've been clever and you've worked on a copy for this, then you could say merge because you've already got your other copy of this with all these. I can still say don't merge, even at this process is fine. And you can see it's converting it with a colour profile. So it's converting the colours to CMYK using a colour profile. Okay, so we've done that, image mode. Yep, so you've got to make sure you do that. As soon as I hit save, that's now going to update in the InDesign document, and you can see, oh, have we hit save? It should say CMYK. What am I? Oh, got the wrong. Oh, see, there it is?
Yeah.
The little thing. So now it updates and you see it says CMYK. Okay? Now, one other thing to draw your attention to is this thing called actual PPI and effective PPI. So the actual is what you started with, and the effective is what you end up with. So I'll just demonstrate what happens to that if I take my image and start trying to expand it. So I'm just going to try and expand it. Notice how the effective pixels per inch just decreased. So this is the problem for you when you're putting things together in InDesign. You actually have to pay attention to this and do a bit of thinking and prepare your Photoshop files at the size you need them. If it's for print, at 300 pixels per inch, or whatever you're told you need to do them at. For example, for billboards and bus shelter ads and things like that, it's 250 because you're not printing on paper. You're printing on a substrate that doesn't benefit you to do that. It makes too big a file. So you'll get specific instances where you'll be told, and what you need to think is, what file size do I need it to appear at? Then go back to Photoshop with that size. And this is why you need to do layouts. This is why you need to plan. And you often need to have InDesign open and do a rough layout and go, okay, what size do I need it at? Then make that size, the image at that size in Photoshop. Or big is okay, because you can always downsize, but smaller is not. So if you download some beautiful image or make it with AI and it's at 72 pixels per inch at some tiny little size, and you think that'll be great, you bring it into, you know, InDesign for a book cover or something like that, and you go, okay, I'll just size it up. No, because you could end up with some very, very pixelated, low quality image because you're not paying attention to this. So the default for print, for magazines, for brochures, for just about anything you ever want to print anywhere is 300 pixels per inch. That's what that PPI means. And the actual is what you started with in Photoshop. The effective is whatever the heck you've done to it when you get it into InDesign. So if it's more, and really a lot more, you'd want to go back and resize it. If it's a little bit more, even if it's 400, that's still going to be okay. You've got plenty of pixels, great. But your file size is bigger than it needs to be. So anyway, so that's the step that, you know, you tend to forget. You've got to go back and convert it to CMYK, and that you've got to check here. When you've done all that, then you can export it. So file export. And remember, we're saving it as a print PDF. So I'll call this CMYK theatre poster because I know I've converted the colours. Now I'll save it, get this up, marks and bleeds, use document bleed setting. Output, you can always go and check your colours. The profile inclusion, always make sure to include the colour profiles. If you put none, then any kind of work you've done in Photoshop is this kind of, in terms of colour, is kind of lost. There's no control over it. Ink Manager lets you check what inks you're using. So if you've ended up using a whole bunch of Pantones accidentally, at this point you can actually, if there were some there, it would give you a little thing. See, it says all spots to process. At this point you can convert them. However, if you have a logo with a Pantone colour, and you know that's going to be, say, an orange logo, it should show up here and you leave it because that's going to have its own separate vat of ink. Yeah, so it would have cyan, magenta, yellow and black plus another vat of ink for your special spot Pantone colour. So that's what the ink manager is worth having a look at, so you don't get any nasty surprises. And that's really all you need to do, except this. So if you don't tick use document bleed settings, it won't put the trim marks in the correct place. It'll just chop your poster off at the edges and the printer won't get the extra little bit in the bleed included. The slug, you might be asked by the printer to include a slug area. It's because there's room for a gripper to grab the end of the paper to push it through the printer. So they might tell you to include that. We don't need to because we're just printing in-house. In general, I'll always do this. I'll say view PDF after printing so I can have a look and then just export, and it's going to show it to me. So I can check that it looks like, that's what it should look like. So if I zoom up on that, this is what I should see. I should see my little colour bars. The printer needs that because as it comes off the press, they need to check things like the ink density. So if they can see the dots are they're kind of filling in, they can do a proof, which they always do, and check how those colours are behaving. They look at it with their first run, they look at it with a little magnifying, they've got a special tool, it's called a loop, and they check how the dots of ink are behaving. So they need those. See, that's the registration mark. And crucially here, so those inner marks, those ones are the ones they will use. The guillotine will register those and will trim automatically along those marks. So that's a correctly set up, that's what we call a print ready PDF. And that's what you're going to print out for me when you're finished. Okay, you're also going to submit that file to the Moodle Okay? You're going to do a picture of it, a screenshot, or drag the PDF will go straight into the Word document for the assessment. So you put it in there as well, but actually hand me in that PDF file. Okay? So I'll stop recording, and then I'll put this